The Simpsons, the world's favorite animated, crazy, funny, and at times, heartwarming American family. We grew up watching them, and we certainly learned valuable lessons from them along the way.
How did the badger do that without ripping your shirt?
I mean, let's face it, Homer, Bart, Lisa, and Marge have all been hit with all sorts of struggles throughout their lives, and watching them fight through these struggles and eventually arrive at their aha moment has probably taught us more about our own lives than we realized at the time. From problems at work,
I don't like you. In fact, I hate you.
at school, with family and friends, and even things on a more existential level.
I want to yell out, but I just can't dang diddly doo dang doo damn diddly darn do it.
The Simpsons has taught us so much. Even though the now classic series focuses on humor, The Simpsons is jam-packed with quality advice and life lessons that are useful for audiences of all ages. I'm Teresa with Wicked Binge, and these are 10 life lessons The Simpsons taught us.
I'm peeing on the seat. Give me a raise.
Hard work will pay off. Every time we see Bart, he seems to be up to no good. His careless nature is a major part of his character, and one of the main reasons the audience loves him so much.
I got a feeling he'll be all right.
A polar opposite to Lisa, he's portrayed as a carefree, spunky kid who couldn't care less about the opinions of grown-ups or schoolwork. He'd rather ride his skateboard through the neighborhood than sit and listen to a single lesson. Now, although Bart seems untouchable in terms of his carelessness and rebellious way of living, he too is vulnerable to failure. And it shows in the episode Bart gets an F. After his failing grades threaten to hold him back another year in school, Bart immediately dedicates himself to his schoolwork.
I'm afraid my recommendation is for Bart Simpson to repeat the fourth grade.
Even though he struggles learning the material, his dedication is admirable. Yes, he still flunks his test, but his hard work pays off in the long run.
You mean I passed?
Just barely.
Jealousy will get you nowhere. Episode after episode, we see Homer going through the most embarrassing, absurd, and oftentimes demoralizing situations as he goes about his daily life.
Let's try the red one again.
We're used to seeing him struggle with difficult issues and struggles in life, but in Homer's Enemy, his life takes a wild and unexpected turn in the right direction. Homer is shown as lucky and with great fortune throughout this episode, in juxtaposition with a new character. Unexpectedly, Homer gets a high-paying and well-desired job spot at the Springfield nuclear power plant. His new colleague, Frank Grimes, doesn't greet him with open arms.
You idiot! You nearly drank a beaker full of sulfuric acid.
Considering that Homer is unworthy of the job due to his incompetence, laziness, and careless nature.
Stop laughing, you imbecile!
Frank, as opposite to Homer, has been working hard and dedicating his life to advancing his career.
Oh, that's my degree in nuclear physics.
Unfortunately for him, Homer snatched his dream job right before his eyes. Bitter due to the fact that his work didn't get recognized, Frank is consumed by jealousy and envy, and eventually goes mad. And he succumbs to madness, causing his death. Yes, death.
Well, I don't need safety gloves because I'm Homer Simpson.
A rather extreme way of portraying how jealousy can take a toll on a person. But the premise stays the same. Jealousy will get you nowhere in life.
I'm a worthless employee, just like Homer Simpson.
In many ways, we see this through the lens of comedy. Very, very black comedy. But in reality, this type of frustration exists. Many times we compare ourselves to others and become bitter when good fortune happens to them and not us. Frank Grimes is an extreme tale of what jealousy can lead to. If you're interested in other good tales in audio form, check out Audible, which we're lucky enough to have as a sponsor. Audible's content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, comedy, and more. We recommend The Springfield Confidential, which hilariously explores some of the making of The Simpsons. If If you'd like to help support the channel, use our link in the description for a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial. Sign up at audibletrial.com/wickedbinge. Stealing will leave you with nothing but shame. We all know that Bart is impressionable to some extent, so when Nelson and Jimbo, as well as the Nintendo characters in his head, pressure him into stealing a video game from the Try and Save supermarket, he impulsively takes the game.
Just take it! Take it, take it, take it, take it, take it!
Being a clumsy kid, he gets caught, banned from the store, and the security guard leaves a message for his parents.
Your son Bart has been caught shoplifting.
Panicking, Bart rushes home and changes the tape so his parents don't learn of his misdoings. But he gets caught later when the family has their Christmas photo taken at the same store he shoplifted in. The fact that Bart participated in stealing deeply disappoints Marge, and she becomes cold and distant towards her son, leaving him out of family activities and refusing to talk to him.
Why didn't you wait for me? I didn't think you'd mind.
Eventually, Bart comes home days after, with something hidden under his jacket. Marge sees him and suspects he's stealing again, but it turns out to be a new portrait of him for the family photo he ruined in the first place. When Marge takes a look at the photo, she is overwhelmed by emotions upon seeing the receipt that reveals that Bart paid for the photo himself. The two reconcile their relationship and everything turns back to normal. So what's the lesson here? Well, as simple as it sounds, stealing is always bad.
It's the company's fault for making you want it so much.
Not only that, but succumbing to peer pressure will eventually destroy your own character and lead you to a bad path in life. But beyond that, your children are never perfect, and they will make mistakes. And that it's important to forgive and understand. Being proud of your culture means being proud of yourself. Culture discrimination is a touchy subject. In The Simpsons, multiple characters have problems with their heritage and skin color. Just look at Krusty the Clown and Apu, who were ashamed of their Judaic and Indian backgrounds and refused to let them show in their professional environment.
You have brought shame on our family.
Even though it took a long time, Krusty found passion in his Judaism and thus reconnected with his father, with whom he had a difficult relationship with. On the other hand, Apu managed to find love in his arranged marriage. The premise of both of their stories is simple. Never be ashamed of who you are.
Never forget who you are.
I won't, Mother.
Culture and heritage can be celebrated and shouldn't be hidden away. Even the most noble people are struck with hardships they don't deserve. We all know Ned Flanders as an overly positive, kind, and religious man who's often the butt of the joke.
Oakley dokley.
His overly religious lifestyle may be a bother to some, but he always treats others with kindness and respect, maybe even more than they deserve. And although his savior is meant to reward him for such behavior, Ned has experienced his fair share of despair throughout the series. For example, in the episode Hurricane Ned, his family's home is the only one left destroyed after a terrible storm hits Springfield. At one point, his store, the Leftorium, nearly failed and went out of business, possibly because a person of lesser moral character wished for his misfortune. He even lost his wife, and still hasn't gotten over her death, as he raises their two kids alone as a single dad. Like biblical characters, this drove Ned to question God as if his misfortune was simply a test by his character.
Why me, Lord? Where have I gone wrong?
As we watch him on the show, we see that he's living proof that there's no logic as to what can happen to a person. Even the most noble people are stricken by tragedies, even though they are the least deserving of them. Family always comes first. It's common knowledge that Homer Simpson isn't perfectly ideal as a family man. He's lazy, sloppy, careless, and an inattentive husband and father, who often gets his family into trouble.
Son, you and I are going to be closer than ever.
Not to mention the fact that he routinely strangles Bart.
Lisa, no! Your hands are too weak!
However, we see glimpses of Homer's fatherly side in various episodes. For example, in You Only Move Twice, Homer decides to give up his dream job when he discovers the rest of his family is miserable with their new life. In other episodes, it's revealed that he only keeps his current job so he can provide for the family once Maggie is born, even though the job is highly abusive and offers no opportunities for development.
I needed more money to support my growing family.
His dedication dedication and love for his family are obviously strong, even though it's not often seen. So the life lesson is, family comes first. Yes, we know what you're thinking. What a cliche. We agree, but the matter of family should never be taken lightly. It is, after all, the pinnacle of our society and should be cared for most. Don't sacrifice what truly matters for temporary pleasure. The Simpsons don't always focus on the most serious of topics. Some episodes are more goofy and lighthearted, but when they do go the serious route, it's usually memorable. In the episode The Last Temptation of Homer, Mr. Burns hires a female employee, an attractive redhead by the name of Mindy Simmons, who Homer is instantly attracted to. Despite being in a long-term marriage with Marge, he starts fantasizing about Mindy, thus emotionally cheating on his wife. Things get worse when Mindy and him are sent to an energy convention where they have to share a hotel room. Soon as the tension rises, the pair kiss and talk about their feelings for one another. Homer is overwhelmed with emotions and starts to cry. Apparently, he has feelings for both of them and is lost on what to do.
Homer, you know how I feel.
Mindy assures him it's his decision, and for once, Homer makes a good one. He decided to stay faithful to Marge and not sacrifice his entire marriage and family for temporary satisfaction. Homer isn't a smart man, but he knows what love is. Being tolerant will get you places. In various episodes, we see Homer's occasional close-minded and blunt behavior. But in Homer's phobia, we see that even he, despite being such an airhead, can find the errors in his ways and open his mind to new views.
Hello? China?
In the episode, Homer dissociates himself from his new family friend John after hearing that he identifies as gay.
Oh my god, I danced with a gay!
Although this may seem way more of an offensive view for Homer to have now, keep in mind this episode aired nearly 20 years ago, and this viewpoint was likely something many would have understood, or even agreed with.
He prefers the company of men.
Who doesn't?
Homer fears that John will have a negative impact on Bart. In fear that his son may turn out to be gay, Homer decides to ensure Bart's heterosexuality by taking him to do manly things, such as hunting. Homer even shows his son a cigarette billboard featuring scantily dressed women to see if his son is attracted to girls.
Well, it's been 2 hours. How do you feel?
I don't know. I kind of want a cigarette.
Soon after the two go to see a steel mill, a rather manly environment as deemed by Homer. Ironically, the entire workforce is gay, and the steel mill is turned into a gay disco when the men are on a break, which is pretty hilarious.
Stand still. There's a spark in your hair. Get it.
As a desperate last attempt, Homer takes Bart deer hunting with Moe and Barney. Since they couldn't actually find a deer, they decide to go to Santa's village and shoot the reindeer, which backfires quickly. They are brutally attacked by a group of reindeer, but luckily John, alongside Lisa and Marge, diffuses the situation and saves the unfortunate trio. After thanking John for his help, Homer accepts his lifestyle and realizes that he doesn't have a bad influence on his son. The life lesson in this is surely mainly focused on tolerance and acceptance. It's important to let people live their own lives and not let it sour your relationships.
But any way you choose to live your life is okay with me.
Your mental health is as important as your physical health. The Simpsons has also touched another very controversial topic in Moaning Lisa: depression.
I'm too sad.
In this episode, we see a groaning, unhappy Lisa who tries to mend her sadness through playing the saxophone. Unfortunately, she is interrupted by Homer, who yells at her to keep the music down, since she is distracting him from his game with Bart.
Lisa, what did I tell you about playing that saxophone thing in the house?
Soon, she hears a saxophone playing in the distance and decides to follow the music. The musician is revealed to be Bleeding Gums Murphy, and they engage in a duet. Meanwhile, Marge has a dream about her childhood. When she was little and was sad, her mother told her to smile. After her dream, she goes to Lisa's room and realizes she's not there. She eventually finds her, and the two come back home. Now familiar with her daughter's feelings, Marge brainstorms to to find a way to cheer up Lisa. The next day, when Marge is dropping Lisa off to school, she tells her to smile and keep her true feelings inside so she doesn't seem different from the other children.
Well, it doesn't matter how you feel inside, you know?
Of course, Marge's intentions are pure, but this advice is entirely wrong. Faking emotions and pretending everything is right will eventually lead to a very unhappy life. Marge soon realizes her mistake and apologizes to Lisa, saying it's okay to be sad and that showing vulnerability and your true self is not only brave, but healthy.
Lisa, I apologize to you. I was wrong. I take it all back.
In this episode, The Simpsons not only explored a tough subject, depression, but an even more controversial topic, the stigma surrounding mental health of adults and kids. The idea of this episode is to explain that depression isn't anything to be ashamed of. Everyone is vulnerable to it, and everyone should have the right to compassion and understanding when it comes to their mental health, despite the fact that we've been pushing our feelings down and out of sight for generations. Stand up to bullies. We know that Bart and Lisa have their differences, but they still share a tight sibling bond. Bart's protective and caring nature comes through mainly when Lisa is bullied by her peers. For example, in one episode, she's bullied by Nelson over some cupcakes. Bart immediately rushes to her aid, but finds himself beat up.
You made me bleed my own blood.
To end Nelson's reign of terror over the neighborhood kids, and to make him see the error in his ways, he decides to seek help from Grandpa Simpson and Herman, who decide to gather all of Nelson's previous victims so they can face Nelson together. They overpower him in the end, and a peace treaty is signed, and the whole group ends up eating cupcakes together. What does this teach us? To stand up to bullies. At the end of the day, bullies can be scary, but they prey on fear and almost always back down when pushed back.
Don't hurt us! Oh, we surrender!
Standing up for yourself and those you care about is oftentimes the only way to deal with these types of people. But let us know in the comments section, what lessons did The Simpsons teach you? Let us know in the comments section below, and let us know what cartoon taught you the most about life. Maybe we'll feature it next. But most importantly, stay wicked!